Hey everyone, Bruce Eckfeldt here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so we can let you know when the next video is posted. You can also check us out at eckfeldt.com for more great content. With that, let's go check out the video.
You're listening to Thinking Outside the Bud, where we speak with entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, researchers, advocates, and policymakers who are finding new and exciting ways for cannabis to positively impact business, society, and culture. And now, here is your host, business coach, Bruce Eckfeldt.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. This is the Thinking Outside the Bud podcast. And here we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the cannabis space from a business production point. I have, my guest today is Stephane Dupervil. Stephane, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
And let me just give people listening a little bit of background on you. So if people haven't figured out by the little bit of accent that we've heard in your name, you're born and raised in Montreal. Or actually, not born, raised in Montreal. Were you born in Montreal?
Actually, I wasn't. I was born in Haiti.
I was
raised in Montreal, yeah.
Raised in Montreal, one of my favorite cities. Stephane is a graduate of McGill University in both microbiology and management, my alma mater. So I love to see McGill on the list here.
Yeah.
And the reason he's here today is because he is head of quality and compliance for Canacure Corporation. And we'll talk a little bit more about Canacure and his role there, as well as kind of what's going on in the Canadian cannabis market and the cannabis space. And you guys have facilities in Fort Erie, which I believe is near Buffalo, if I remember correctly, and Essex County, which I think is the other side of the lake over by Detroit.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So right kind of on the U.S. border, but both Canadian facilities. So why don't we start just with kind of helping people understand what's been going on in Canada relative to the cannabis market. I know you've got a very photogenic leader right now who has been very big on talking about cannabis. I know the provinces have been doing various things. Give us a little bit of background on what's going on with the cannabis space there.
All right. To go at it very quickly, like we talk a lot about legalization for the recreational market right now, and this is what's happening with Trudeau and what you alluded to. But all of this started a while ago with the first legislation for medical marijuana. So the thing is, at the beginning, you had only a crown corporation that could sell medical marijuana to a very small amount of people, and then they could not supply, so they had created a second legislation where more people could apply, and companies started that way. This is where you have those Tweed and all the bigger companies. That's when they started, and under this regulation that was called the MMPR, which is the Medical Marijuana Production Regulation.
Okay, and Crown. Just to clarify for folks, when we talk about a Crown company, that's a government organization.
Yeah, exactly.
So originally it was controlled by the government. The government said, okay, we're going to control the actual production of cannabis for the medical market.
That's exactly it.
All right.
So the problem with the MMPR is that it created, it was basically saying that people could not grow their own, which was kind of possible. Like I'm talking about individual here. Yeah. So individual could not grow their own, and this was possible before. And this was struck down by the Supreme Court, and then a new regulation had to be created, and that's the ACMPR, which is basically a mix where you could have people that could grow their own medical marijuana and still had the companies that had to get their licenses and grow this way.
Got it. So this is growing for personal use? This is I can grow my own medical marijuana for my own personal use?
Yeah, exactly. So right now, this is the situation. So you have companies that can grow marijuana for any random person, or you can have you yourself, you have your medical card, so you can grow your medical marijuana for yourself.
Got it.
There's, of course, restrictions there, the amount you can grow and all of that. So that's the situation right now. And then what Trudeau what has been going on in the past few months that everybody's talking about is the stock market going up, and down these days, but either way, like it's been moving. It's really because recreationally, like it would be legal for companies to sell to recreational users. So you're removing the medical part, and people that want to buy marijuana to get high can. So this is basically the end of prohibition.
Got it.
And it has everyone here very, very excited about this.
And so the legislation is in place? Like what is the actual status and what's the timing of the market actually from boots on the ground, people being able to actually go down the street and purchase recreational marijuana? Where are we?
Yeah, we're a few months away, I would say.
Yeah.
Like the last hurdle, which was the Senate, got passed a few weeks ago.
Okay.
It was really good news. Now the government has to put in place the regulations. So they've had time to they've done public consultations. They have draft regulations and propositions that have been made. So this is working. The goal was to have this before July 1st.
Okay.
Apparently that's still the goal. Personally, I'm a bit skeptical, but either way, like it's happening fairly quickly, like in the grand scheme of things, we had decades of prohibition. And this is the end of it.
Got it. Give us a sense of how the federal and the province play. Are there province by province aspects to this, or is this universal across all provinces?
So the federal is basically legalizing recreational marijuana. Now, how this is exactly set up will be province by province.
Yeah.
So each of the provinces, one they want the tax money, right? So they need to set up in a way that will maximize that for them. So each of the provinces have fairly different setups. For example, Ontario, this will be sold through a company that we have here that's called LCBO, which is a crown corporation owned by the Ontario government.
Okay.
LCBO currently sells, it's the Liquor Board of Ontario. So it's
okay. It's like the SAQ in Quebec.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they sell liquor and they basically regulate this whole thing. And then marijuana would come under their umbrella.
So actually, let's talk about this just briefly so people understand just from a market dynamic point of view, because in the U.S. we don't have this in the same way as that. Alcohol is actually sold by the province. So I know in Quebec we have the SAQ, certainly all hard alcohol and some certain wines and things like that are purchased. You purchase through an SAQ store, so you don't have the same kind of market as you do here in the U.S. with local liquor stores. Similarly, in Ontario, they have their own government-controlled liquor sale program. And I know in Quebec, you can buy wine and beer through grocery stores and other places as well. Is that the same in Ontario, or do they control all alcohol sales?
Yeah, I'm pretty into Ontario actually, but the thing from what I understand is they control all the alcohol sales, and there's another entity that's called the beer store where you can buy beer and the like.
The beer store.
I haven't seen beer in grocery stores though.
Yeah, I remember that from college days. So there will be a similar kind of model that the provinces will be involved in the actual dispensing and sale of marijuana product.
Well, not all provinces. If you look at Alberta, for example, they're talking about having private companies selling it. So the thing is, it's just that all the provinces basically set their own framework to how this works. Another difference, as an example, is Quebec is saying that you will not be able to grow your own as an individual for personal use, whereas Ontario, this is possible. This is possible as of now. Like this is the way they're setting this up.
Got it. So those kind of the finer aspects of how the market actually produces, distributes, dispenses product will be kind of dialed in, basically determined by the provincial legislatures on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
All right. I think that gives us a sense of where the federal situation is, what the time frame is. Provincially, those things are getting worked out. So talk about the market and how sort of Canacure, what it is, how it plays in the market, what its focus is, how it's hoping to kind of take advantage of the legislation as it rolls out. Give us a sense of that.
Yeah. So the thing is, what this has created is that you have a lot of companies that are coming in. I was looking a little bit earlier. There's 92 licensed producers. I'm talking about just cultivation licenses. Well, actually, I should explain this.
Yeah.
So the way the licenses work here is that you can get a cultivation license, which lets you cultivate marijuana, and then you can sell it to another licensed producer, or, well, basically that's it. And then you can get a sales license where you can sell that when you can sell the marijuana that you're produced or that you bought from somebody else, you can sell it to an individual that has a medical card or the like. So it's basically a two-step process. Now, the thing is, right now, so we have 92 licensed producers where I'm talking about cultivation, and about half of these have sales licenses. Now, us at Canacure, the way we saw things, we're in the process of getting our cultivation license. So the way we saw us doing things, and to take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of companies that want to sell to people, is that we have a 150,000 square foot facility in Fort Erie where we'll be focusing on processing cannabis. So we'll be doing extraction, we'll be doing edibles, we'll be doing any type of these things.
Got it.
Now, we're in the process of getting all these licenses for these, but this is how it's starting. Now, the other thing is that we're in the process of getting licensing for our greenhouse, which is in Kingsville in Essex County, which is an 80-acre greenhouse. And this will be our focus for cultivation. So we'll be growing at the greenhouse, shipping it to Fort Erie, and then processing it here.
Processing, got it. So you're going to literally do the growing at the greenhouse in Essex, create the raw plant material, transport it to your other location for basically turning it into a saleable product. So you're actually going to take it to an extraction, take it to an edible, ready to sell. Are you doing packaging and things like that, or are you letting the final seller do the final packaging to it?
So the idea is to have this whole thing as a turnkey solution. So yes, there will be packaging. People can send us their artwork and then we'll be doing the packaging of this. Now, I just want to be clear, like in terms of timeline, I would say months away from getting able to do the whole turnkey thing. But we're moving there at a very quick pace.
Got it.
And the more licensed producers there are, the better it is for us, because this is more customers for us.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you're really kind of taking the sort of the early part of the process and say, look, let's be experts in that. Let's partner then, essentially have as clients all those people that are good at the marketing and the retail and getting customers and building customer relationships and just being really good suppliers. It's like a third-party manufacturer, OEM kind of these products.
Yeah.
So I think from a business model, that makes sense. Now, are you going to be supplying, or is the idea that you're going to be working just in the side of Ontario or throughout Canada?
We're going to be working throughout Canada. Of course, we're closest in Ontario, and then we're building our network, say, with Ontario first. But we're talking to people outside as well. And we're even talking to people outside of Canada as well. So we're talking about Europe, where, Germany just opened their borders to medical marijuana. It's a big, big thing. This week, there's a conference there about medical marijuana that I think a lot of people are looking to. And this is a big opportunity. I mean, Germany has more people than Canada, and this is this can be potentially huge. And Canadian company have the expertise to make this legally within a level of quality that the German people are used to with drugs, with pharmaceutical drugs. So this is a big plus for Canada. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the interesting things, just from a business point of view, that the Canadian market offers, which is you figured out the federal legislation, so you can actually participate on a global economy. We're still kind of stuck here in the U.S. with this kind of the federal issues, and we can't. It's hard to contemplate participating at the international level when you're dealing with the restrictions that we're under. So let's talk a little bit about. So I get the role that you want to play in the market. I think it's a good point that the market really is international now, not just national for you or federal now for you in terms of the scope of this. Let's talk about the kind of the grow side first, because I think that's interesting. I mean, you said this facility was 40 acres?
80 acres.
80 acres. So you've got 80 acres of greenhouse facilities.
Yeah.
When you start to contemplate, going from, having a little tent in your basement, growing a couple of plants, like to going 80 acres, like how do you actually, or what are the considerations or factors that go into thinking about a growing at that scale? Like what have you learned, or what are the things that you're grappling with?
I have to say, we're still learning, and we have, as I said, we have some ways to go.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just that everything is much bigger in a sense that all the dealings, all the the technology that needs to be implanted to control all of this is just at what it means to be at a bigger scale is that something that would affect you, let's say 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1 million, they would affect, like, you have to take care of that, because 1 in 1 million will happen. You're doing it and this will happen. You have to to plan for this. And it's really, I would say it's also figuring out how to use all that capacity and to make sure that we can be, you don't want to flood the market either, right?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you're profitable in doing this. Mm-hmm. So it's really finding the way that we can use this in a very cost efficient way, and that we can have a product that's high quality and then cost efficient.
Yeah. And your role there is head of quality and compliance. Yeah. So what does your day-to-day look like, or what are the things that you're focused on relative to this whole kind of production process?
Yeah, I would say right now, my role is quality and compliance, but at the startup phase. So my day-to-day is very hectic in the sense that, well, you can see in the video, but you can't hear that. But the thing is just here, everything is temporary right now. Yeah. I'm in Fort Erie right now, and they're doing the construction, building the walls and everything. So it's making sure that this is going on to according to plans, and that there's no issue related to the compliance, which is no issue related to the law, let's say.
Yeah.
In terms of the greenhouse, at this point is preparing all the reports. The way an application works with Health Canada is that you need to submit several reports. One of the most important ones is the quality assurance report, which will have all your SOPs, so all your standard operating procedures from, how you grow, how you package, how you investigate if, you didn't follow your packaging procedure, how do you investigate that discrepancy? Mm-hmm. All of that need to be written down. Those that are familiar with the pharmaceutical space will be very familiar with this. But if you're not, it can be very, very daunting because we have, I don't remember how many documents, but it has to be around like 300 to 350 documents that we submitted. And this we're looking to submit as well for the greenhouse. So
my understanding is your background's in the pharmaceutical space.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you've been able to learn or what you've been able to apply from your experience in pharmaceutical to the space, and then what has been new and challenging.
So in terms of pharma, like what I've been able to bring is this understanding of what Health Canada wants us to do. So Health Canada is there to make sure that we are bringing in a product that is safe for people. Yeah. The quality, we want to have a product that, it tastes good or whatever, but the Health Canada role is not that, right? It's just to make sure that, nobody takes it and then has a really bad experience. Hopefully nobody dies or anything like this. And they need us to prove that to them. Yeah. And to prove that to them, you need to have all that documentation, and you need to show that you are following that documentation. If you say that you're going to do X and then you're going to do A then B, then you do A then B. You don't do A then C.
Yeah.
So this is very important, and this is something that coming from pharma is not really something that you see in other industries like that are not highly regulated. Yeah. So this is something that can bring and make things smoother when you're going to apply with Health Canada.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that has been more challenging, I would say, is pharma is a little bit more like this mentality is entrenched in pharma. So it's easy to explain. Whereas here you have a lot of people that come from a lot of different backgrounds, and then explaining this can be a bit difficult to understand if you haven't lived through Health Canada inspection or regulators inspection from or whatever industry. It's hard to explain exactly what it is. I try to say that it's a little bit like, when you go through customs and then they start asking you a bunch of questions and the like, it's a little bit like this, but it lasts a whole day, or a few days or a week or something like this, right? So they're not here. They're not your enemy or anything like this. They're doing their job and everything. But you need to understand that you're answering questions in a way that you want to go through it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And then explaining that to people is one thing. Of course, I learned a lot about growing marijuana, which I did not know about before joining this industry.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. It's really interesting, and this is a super exciting opportunity to be able to be part of the industry at this point in time.
Yeah. I think that's an important point, which is this where we are in this whole kind of cannabis business, cannabis space is this really kind of intersection or mashup of the sort of the marijuana pot culture, historically, with this kind of pharmaceutical, medical science, with, business investors, looking to, create, new companies, new profit streams, and then the international stuff. I mean, we've got all these kind of regulation, market dynamics, people coming up with standardizations, like how do we even define what these products are in a way that we can buy and sell and trade and, create international standards around this. It's a fascinating time. So I guess tell me, what are some of the things that you're focused on in the coming months in terms of, both the industry, cannabis industry in general, the things you're waiting to have happen, uncertainties that you see that are going to be big to kind of watch out for as all this unfolds in the coming months and years?
Yeah. In terms of the cannabis industry in general, the way I see it is the main thing that I see is really how medical marijuana will take off in the countries where it's not right now. Yeah. So the thing is, if you look, Germany does it, and this is a big deal. Like you look at the stock market when this started happening, that was like late last year, and then people started realizing that Canada can sell there. Like it did started blowing up. This is Germany. This is one country. There's other countries in Europe that are doing it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of big countries that are not there, like France or the like. And those countries eventually will get there. Like as you get more and more data that supports that medical marijuana is useful mm-hmm. and can be used for treatments, then you get all those countries that come in. And as you get more and more data that, you can get a lot of money out of it, then governments will want to jump in as well.
Yeah.
Even the United States, like recently I've seen that they're looking at medical marijuana at a federal level.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a big deal, like to be able to sell to the U.S. It's 300 million people against 30 million people in Canada.
Yeah.
So this will have a massive impact. And of course, the other big thing is recreational marijuana, where you're multiplying your client pool by 10 or more. Mm-hmm. This is seeing how it will evolve in Canada, which is the biggest country to do it, like on a federal level at this point. Will be very interesting. And I think a lot of countries are looking into this. One big thing is, and I don't know if people are aware, like Uruguay is another country that legalized recreational marijuana.
Yeah.
And they've had some issues with banking where it was not possible for people to use banks at all. Like, so it was purely a cash business. And I think that in the US, this is
some of those same problems. Just to some extent, that's correct. Yeah.
So we're looking really to see like how Canada will approach this issue, because international treaties are still there, and there can be some issues there.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like there's a lot of sort of secondary and tertiary issues around the markets and secondary market. I think other markets that need to also catch up that are going to impact or at least create stumbling blocks potentially at certain stages. So figuring out what those are and getting ahead of them. And honestly, those are probably where the other business opportunities are for people that are interested in getting in here. Stephane, this was amazing. If people wanted to find out more about you and CannaCure and the business, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I would say the best thing is to go to cannacure.ca. Mm-hmm. Our website, I'm guessing by the time they read this, is going to be up and running. They can find more information about this. Right. I think you're putting my contact info. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
And my email is going to be there. And
Perfect. Yeah. I'll make sure that your email address and the link to the website is on the show notes here. And I really appreciate it. It's an exciting time, and I'm curious to see how this plays out. And it's going to be an interesting 6-12 months. So I'll look forward to keeping in touch and seeing how you guys do.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. And I really look forward to listening to the other interviews on the podcast. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Stephane. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Au revoir.
Take care. Have a good day. Cheers.
You too. Ciao.
You've been listening to Thinking Outside the Bud with business coach Bruce Eckfeldt. To find a full list of podcast episodes, download the tools and worksheets, and access other great content, visit the website at thinkingoutsidethebud.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free newsletter at thinkingoutsidethebud.com/newsletter.